This podcast is for general information only. It is not intended as a substitute for general healthcare services. If you have medical conditions, you need to see your doctor. Use of this information is at the user's own risk. Welcome to FitRx with Dr. Greg Dennis. Join me as we challenge the standard sick model of healthcare. This is your source for everything health, wellness, prevention, fitness, biohacking, and more. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of FitRx. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Dennis. We're going to talk about sleep today. You've, I'm sure, heard me talk a little bit about it in past episodes. But honestly, it's not something that I talk enough about. You know, we talk a lot about nutrition and things like that, but sleep is every bit as important in an overall wellness program and achieving optimal health. And it's funny that I'm doing this today because I was just at a dinner last night and talking to someone, and when people know that I'm a doctor, then of course they just start talking about issues that they're having. And so this individual was talking about insomnia and how he's been an insomniac for years and years and years, and he's tried this, that, and the other. And so we just struck up a conversation. We're talking about some things, and he was talking about how it affected his whole life and mostly mentally. And he was talking about how it just, he couldn't think straight and, and all this. And so anyways, I'm sure it's no surprise how important sleep is. And most people know that, but then it seems like a lot of people just don't know what to do to help when they're struggling with sleep. And so my guest today is going to help us with that. So my guest is Amanda Chocko. She is a nutritional therapy practitioner and now a sleep coach. She is a former insomniac, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. And so now she helps people be able to sleep better. And she wrote a book called Relax.Sleep.Thrive. So looking forward to hearing what she has to say. So Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, I guess we'll start. Kind of tell us your story. A lot of times people become expert in things that they struggle with themselves. And I guess that's you. And so I guess talk, if you will, about how you got interested in sleeping, a little bit about your story, and then we'll get into maybe some specifics of sleep.
Sure. So my story, sleep, I've never been a great sleeper, that's for sure. In about 2017, I became a nutritional therapy practitioner, and that was as a result of dealing with inflammatory bowel disease and autoimmunity for decades. I got really tired of just getting prescriptions and potentially facing surgery. Couldn't believe those were my only options. So I really began to look into a more holistic approach for dealing with my IBD. And it was quite the journey. It's probably a whole podcast in itself. But throughout the process, I really learned how much nutrition, sleep, my environment, lifestyle really played into all of my symptoms and the origins of that condition. And I began to blog about my journey. I had a blog called the Feeling Groovy Project, and I talked about all the different things I was doing, over those couple of years to really try to fix that issue that I was having, which I was able to do. And at that time, when I was blogging, I started getting people, as you experienced from your dinner last night, hear that I'm going through these things. They're like starting to ask me questions about health. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm really excited about this, and I've become really passionate about wellness and holistic health. And that's what originally drove me to go to Nutritional Therapy Association and become a certified nutritional therapy practitioner. And upon graduation, because of my history, I really dug into protocols for autoimmunity and gut health. I started working with women with those issues as well as blood sugar. And although they didn't come to me originally with sleep issues, I found that that was a really common issue among a lot of them. So I was always trying to help them overcome their sleep issues while I was also simultaneously working with them on other parts of their health. But it wasn't until around the pandemic time where my own insomnia really set in. It became chronic. I was not sleeping barely at all. I was having trouble falling asleep. I was waking in the middle of the night. I couldn't get back to sleep. And it was really impacting every aspect of my life, cognitively, physically. I just was walking around in a fog all the time. I thought, okay, it's time to get back to the drawing board again and find the root cause of what is going on with my sleep. So I really dug into the research over that time, and I started playing around with different protocols. And I was recording everything that I was doing. And ultimately, I decided to develop this protocol to be able to help my clients, but also ended up writing my book, Relax.Sleep.Thrive, your 5-week journey to peaceful restorative sleep. So as a result of all of that, I basically pivoted my practice to being primarily a sleep coach to help people overcome insomnia.
Okay. Well, very good. Well, let's dig into sleep a little bit more. Why do you think insomnia is such a problem nowadays? Do you think we're just realizing it more, or do you think it's that much more prevalent than it was, say, 50 years ago?
Yeah, so I certainly is a lot more prevalent. I mean, our lifestyles have changed significantly in the last 50 years. I mean, when you think about just the extra stressors that we have in our life, the work schedules that we keep, the internet, our devices that we're on continuously. It just seems like, everybody's stressed out. Everybody's coming down with some type of, health issue, and a lot of that's culminating in insomnia. And I think people are really beginning to take note of it a lot because of what you hear. There's so much more information out there, and you're hearing more and more about how sleep deprivation can be so harmful to your health, or just really noticing how you're not functioning as well as you were, maybe when you were younger and you were a bit more resilient
Hmm.
to sleep
Yeah.
issues.
What do you think the connection is? And you mentioned it a little bit. And obviously, when people aren't sleeping well, they're going to be tired and they can get irritable and that kind of thing. But you talked about you kind of saw a connection between some of these chronic illnesses and insomnia. Talk a little bit more about that, if you will. I mean, what do you think that connection is there?
Well, there's so much that happens during our sleep cycles, in our deep sleep, where, our lymphatic system is at work, really washing the toxins out of our brain, our body is repairing itself, our muscles are growing, our hormones are regulating. And when you think about hormones, you think about, our sex hormones, which are also definitely impacted by sleep, but so are our hunger hormones, ghrelin and leptin. So we find ourselves, ghrelin is our hunger hormone, it tells us we're hungry, and that goes up. So we feel more hungry. And our leptin level sensitivity goes down. So we're less likely to feel satiated after eating. And then also our blood sugar regulation is disrupted, as well as our insulin sensitivity and our cortisol. So this all can really manifest into blood sugar issues and contribute to diabetes. Also, not being able to sleep, plays a significant role in depression and a lot of neurological diseases, because your brain really gets to rejuvenate during sleep. And again, like I said, wash out those toxins, consolidate memories, deal with emotions. And ultimately you end up, being irritable. I mean, the short-term thing is, right, you're moody, irritable, less likely to be motivated to exercise or eat properly. So I think a lot of it just ultimately ends up that if it becomes chronic, it could end up to be chronic diseases like diabetes, like neurological issues, like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's is also related to sleep, chronic insomnia as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that would be the general answer to that. I mean, our immune system is also regulated in our sleep. So if you have dysregulation of your immune system, that could also result in chronic conditions as well.
Yeah.
And chronic conditions can prevent you from sleeping well. So it's kind of this inverse effect that it has.
Okay. So you're more or less a sleep coach now, and so most people listening are like, yeah, I know sleep is good for you, but I've tried, like this gentleman I was talking to last night, I've tried this, I've tried that. So when somebody comes to you, kind of walk us through what kind of history, like what you want to know, where you start out, and kind of what your goal is, going forward with them.
So when somebody comes to me with a sleep issue, we first really assess with, what is their history with sleep issues, and also what is their health history, because we're looking at, are there any already some chronic conditions that are prevalent that might be contributing to it? What their lifestyle is like. Do they have a normal regular sleep schedule that they're on? Do they have a lot of stress in their life? What specifically with sleep are they dealing with? Is it a trouble falling asleep? Is it trouble staying asleep? Is it not feeling well rested? So we really start there, just really trying to assess where that specific person is. In the book, it takes a more general approach where, you're first working on that sleep hygiene.
Mhm.
And that's really the foundation there, is to making sure you have a regular sleep schedule, you're de-stressing at night, you have some type of a wind down routine, that your sleep environment is optimal. So that would include, darkness and temperature being cool, because our bodies need to cool down a couple of degrees, before bed. So looking at all of those aspects of it, but then also journaling and tracking the day-to-day, everyday things that one might be doing. Because quite often it could just be, shifting the timing of our habits. So for instance, everyone knows caffeine could be something that impacts sleep. But everybody has a different caffeine tolerance. They metabolize it differently. So what might work for someone else might not be the case for you, and what worked for you a number of years ago might not work for you now. So it has a half-life of 8 to 10 hours, and also it's in so many things. It's not just coffee. So looking at, chocolate, there's some medications and supplements that have caffeine. So really looking at that aspect of it as well. Meal timing, also adjusting meal timing to be trying to finish your large meal 2 to 3 hours before bed, to give your body time to digest. Because if you go to bed with a full stomach, besides having digestive issues, your body heats up. Again, you want your body to be cooled off. And it's really making your systems focus on that digestion instead of the other aspects of good sleep. And it could disrupt your sleep. Exercise falls into that. As I said, medications and supplements often have insomnia. So really working with somebody, tracking those things, keeping a diary, and really trying to connect those dots to basically like the sleep quality as it relates to the everyday things that they're doing.
Yeah. People have heard me say this before, but probably the number one thing I've noticed as I've gotten older, because I'm very healthy, I'm a very fit guy for my age. But
Mhm.
one of the things I've noticed is I can't get away with things, especially as it pertains to sleep, that I used to be able to. When I was
Yeah.
younger, I could do whatever, and then I'd sleep good, get up and feel fine. I can't do that anymore. So you mentioned the timing of food. I notice if I eat late, don't give myself a 2 or 3 hour window, because I track my sleep, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But my sleep quality goes down. If I'm out with friends and I have a drink kind of late, my sleep quality goes down, and
Mhm.
so I'm much more sensitive to those things than I used to be. But let's take a step back if we can. So you kind of mentioned it. So some people deal with sleep onset insomnia, meaning they just have trouble going to sleep, or they may have sleep maintenance insomnia, where they just have trouble staying asleep. So
Mhm.
let's talk about the first one, sleep onset insomnia. What and you mentioned some things. I mean, and this is what I was telling the gentleman last night. There's not just one thing you can do, because I think that's what people want. They just want a magic pill, and but there's a lot of different things you have to put into place, and it's not an overnight thing. And so you mentioned meal timing. Give yourself 2 or 3 hour window. From the last meal. Cold dark room, minimizing blue light. I mean, these are things I tell people. So those are all kind of the basics in sleep hygiene. Outside of that, like if people are still like they just have a hard time, what are some of the things you tell them if they're just having a hard time going to sleep?
So as far as not being able to fall asleep, again, looking at like stress and cortisol. So if you have a stressful day, you're go, 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 and then all of a sudden you try to hit the brakes and go right to sleep, your body's still going to be on high alert, and it's going to be much more difficult for you to fall asleep. So really looking at, you know, starting to dim the lights in your home, about an hour before bed. If you are one to be wanting to look at your phone or watching TV in the evening and getting that blue light, investing in a pair of blue light blocking
Mhm.
glasses, that has helped me immensely. I mean, I read my Kindle every night, and I know that light, and I have the old version, so it's still bright. uh, but wearing those blue blockers, I just feel like everything comes down right away. Sometimes it's just you have so much on your mind that it's hard to fall asleep. So I really recommend, making a to-do list for that. Doing a mind dump. Get all of the things out of your head and onto a paper and say, okay, I know I have to deal with these things, and I'm going to deal with them tomorrow. Or the same thing with worries. Sometimes I work with my clients on creating a worry list. So what is it that you're worried about? Jot it down and then designate a worry time the next day where you're going to spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes focusing on the problem solving, or reframing of some of those worries that you have and how you're going to deal with it. So you're not going to bed with all of that stress in your head. And again, having that wind down routine that you're really beginning to relax yourself. But also, with the caffeine issue, making sure that you looking at when you're having your caffeine timing and setting that back, having a caffeine curfew if you must. But a lot of times it's also just not having a consistent sleep schedule.
Mhm.
And that's something I think is the number one. And you starting with a consistent wake up time. So whatever kind of, whether you're a night owl or a morning lark, or wherever you are, and trying to, as best as possible, have a set sleep and wake schedule. And if you start with your wake schedule, eventually your sleep time will catch up, because you'll begin to build that sleep pressure throughout the day and begin to be able to fall asleep. And then, you will train your body to start feeling relaxed and sleepy at a certain time every night. If you have an erratic sleep schedule, your circadian rhythm is not in sync, and you're kind of all over the place, and it makes it harder for your body and brain to know it is time to relax and go to sleep.
You mentioned that you had problems sleeping. Do you feel like there was one thing for you that really turned the corner, or was it just all of these things that you put into place that you wasn't doing before that helped you the most?
Yeah, it was a number of things. It wasn't one specific thing, for sure. I definitely worked on, that sleep hygiene that we've been talking about, and getting, I am very regimented now with my sleep schedule. And even when I don't want to be, my body tells me that it's going to be,
Mhm.
which doesn't make me the most fun at parties on the weekend, but you know.
I'm I'm the same. No, I'm the same way. I feel good if I get a good night's rest. But like I said, if I wake up early, no matter what time I go to bed, and so if on a rare occasion I'm out late, I'm still going to wake up at 6 o'clock, and so then I don't
Mhm.
feel good the next day. So yeah, my body's ready to go to bed at 9:30, 10, and it's ready. So I I don't
Yeah.
I'm pretty boring as well, but. Uh, so, let's talk a little bit about like sleep maintenance insomnia. I mean, that's more what I've struggled with personally over the years. I've never really had a problem going to sleep, still don't, but especially when I'm stressed and things, I'll wake up early in the morning, 3 or 4 o'clock, sometimes can't go back to sleep.
Mhm.
Uh, talk about that for a minute, maybe any recommendations you would have if there's anything different, if it's maybe a sleep maintenance issue.
Yeah, that could be for a number of reasons. You talked about earlier alcohol. So a lot of people, they feel I'll have a nice glass of wine or a nightcap, and that's going to help me go to sleep. And initially it does because alcohol is a sedative, so it might relax you and help you fall asleep. But it does have a rebound effect. And usually that happens after it processes through your liver. And it's usually that 2, 3 o'clock in the morning where you feel yourself waking up from that and having a hard time going back to sleep. And that was definitely one of the things that I found with myself was and I even tried to just drink earlier and earlier and early, and it got too early where I couldn't be drinking in the middle of the day. So I just have really eliminated alcohol for the most part from my life. So alcohol will definitely wake you up. Anything that's going to spike your cortisol will wake you up. So quite often that could be a drop in blood sugar
Mhm.
in the evening. So really looking at your blood sugar balance during the day, whether it's just that you have hypoglycemia or might have been something that you ate. But if it's chronic, it's a good idea to look into, whether you have some type of a blood sugar dysregulation, because
Mhm.
that will, it's an emergency, as you know, to your body when your blood sugar drops and your cortisol is going to spike to get that sugar back into your blood, and that will wake you up. Food sensitivities can wake you up. Gut issues could wake you up. Just not getting into deep sleep in general could just have fractured sleep during the night when your body's just not able to relax enough to get into the sleep cycles.
Mhm.
Uh, Going, if you have to go to the restroom, so looking at your liquid intake before you
Mhm.
go to bed and maybe stopping that. So there are different things that could be waking you up in the night. So
Mhm.
the trick is getting back to sleep, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's not uncommon to wake up. I mean, most of us do wake up in the night, and a lot of the times we don't even know that happened. It's just when your brain turns on and you just can't shut it off and get back to sleep. So that's really getting back to that stress management. And, meditation was always kind of an on-off thing for me, over, the last 10 years or so. But what I found, for me, I would be like, why am I meditating? I'm just sitting here thinking anyway, and I could be doing something else. I was just like too type A, to really be able to get into it for long periods of time. But when I finally made myself do that, and this was during when I was trying to fix my sleep, meditation, what it's really is brain training, and it helps you to, just notice your thoughts and let them pass instead of getting, pulled into incessant thought. So really having a meditation routine, even if it's during the day, is helpful, and just really being able to distract your mind in some way. There's different visualization techniques and breath work that you can use. But really, if you find yourself waking in the middle of the night and after, 15, 20 minutes, you can't get back to sleep, it's really recommended that you get out of bed and go into another room and do something relaxing, not under a bright light, not using your phone, but something that's not too exciting, maybe knitting or reading a regular book under a soft light, or doing a crossword puzzle, or whatever the case may be, and getting back to bed once you feel tired. Because an important thing in cognitive behavioral therapy that deals with insomnia is all about that association with your bed when insomnia becomes chronic, and then you get stressed out because you got up in the middle of the night, you looked at the clock, and you're like, oh my goodness, it's only 3 o'clock in the morning. I got so much to do tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you look at the clock again, and it's 4 o'clock, and you're getting more and more stressed out, and your cortisol's going up. So don't look at the clock. Try to distract your mind. Get out of bed and go back to bed once you feel a bit relaxed.
Yeah. Let's talk about supplements a minute. Everybody, wants to just take a supplement and everything be better. And what I tell people, there might be some that could help a little. They certainly, in my experience, don't move the needle as much as sleep hygiene and all these things that we're talking about. But again, there may be some that can help. In your research and all your dealings with insomnia, what are your thoughts on certain supplements? Are there any that you typically recommend?
Yeah, so magnesium is a big one,
Yep.
and specifically magnesium glycinate
Hmm.
is. Now, there are many types of magnesium, and magnesium, so many of us are deficient in it. And then there's so many different types of magnesium for different processes. There's like hundreds and hundreds of processes that need magnesium. But really, getting about 350 to 450 milligrams of magnesium glycinate is usually something that I recommend. Certainly, getting some type of testing if you can, to see if you are deficient in any type of minerals or vitamins, could be helpful. L-theanine is another supplement that could be helpful. I experimented with melatonin for a while when I was, and there's a lot of mixed stuff out there about melatonin. There are some studies or people that'll say, oh, don't take it because, your body's going to become dependent on it, and you're going to be less likely to manufacture your own melatonin. But for me, at certain times, especially in the beginning, and I was trying to set my sleep schedule and my circadian rhythms, it was helpful. But you have to be careful with melatonin because it's not regulated. The melatonin that's out there, the milligrams are much higher than we actually need. You'll see 3, 5, 10 milligram melatonins, which is way too much. And it can wake you in the middle of the night. So I take, or if I'm working with somebody and we decide that's the way to go, as a temporary solution, it's using a pill cutter and doing the tiniest amount that you can. I take a 3 milligram for myself and quarter it. And also, you want to get, continuous release, so it's releasing throughout the night, and that will also help as well. But it's not, as you said before, the other things are more important first. You want to get, the sleep hygiene in and really be looking at those other things that we talked about earlier. There are a lot of different supplements out there that have combinations of supplements that you could try. But it's really important to know that it's from a reliable source, that it has, some third-party data on it, and maybe working with your practitioner before you do anything that's extreme in that way. CBD is also one that helps a lot of people, but then there are other people that it doesn't help at all. It actually does the opposite. There's a lot of marijuana itself. There are studies coming out now where that is not great for sleep, where for a time, and you'll find a lot of gummies and things out there that have it for sleep, that's also wrecking with your sleep stages. So it's not the best solution.
Yeah. Okay. Well, talk a minute about your book, Relax, Sleep, Thrive. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the things you've been discussing are in your book, but just kind of give us a general overview of the book and what people could expect with that.
Yeah, so it's designed as a 5-week program that anybody can purchase the book. I have group programs and coaching around it, but really anybody that wants to really dig in and find the root cause of their sleep issues, this would be helpful for. And it takes us through a lot of the things that we've been discussing. So it's broken up into 5 weeks, and it's also broken up into day by day. So you're not reading it cover to cover. You're doing it one day at a time, and there's action items for every day. So you're just getting enough information for you to be able to connect the dots as to the reasons why you're doing something, but not overwhelming you with a lot of data and terminologies. And I mean, the last thing you want to do is read a heavy book, especially if you have insomnia. So the first week's all about sleep hygiene, setting your sleep schedule, creating your sleep sanctuary, creating your wind down routine. There's an assessment in the beginning of the book to get that baseline of where your sleep is at now that you'll take again at the end. And you're also taking a sleep commitment statement because you may have to change some habits, and that habit change is hard. So really committing to yourself and knowing your why as to why that you're going to go on this journey to fix your sleep. And it's at that first week you start tracking your sleep, just where you are now, so you know how to compare it as you go along. So how long did it take you to fall asleep? Are you waking in the middle of the night? When are you waking up? Are you feeling refreshed? What's going on there? The second week's about playing sleep detective. So the things that we talked about earlier, starting to track those. So that's light exposure, meal timing, exercise timing, caffeine, alcohol, medications, supplements. So really looking to see if any of those things are impacting your sleep and how you might adjust them. When it comes to medications, you definitely want to work with your healthcare practitioner before you change anything there. In the third week, it's all about that mind management, helping with that relentless mind chatter and negative thought processes that often hit us as soon as we decide to hit the pillow or wake in the night. So all kinds of techniques, breath work, meditation, different apps that are out there, visualization techniques, reframing techniques for thoughts. So there's lots of different tools there. Then the fourth week is all about your sleep toolbox. So all of the different products and gadgets that are out there, such as weighted blankets and sleep masks. And we talked about the blue blockers and the sleep trackers and the supplements that might be helpful. And then the final week is really saying, okay, well, and I'm working on all of the foundations of sleep, but what if it's something deeper? Do you have a sleep disorder, sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome? Do you have a chronic health condition? Is it hormonal imbalances? So then looking at all of that and deciding, whether it's time to go see your doctor to analyze whether those things are impacting your health or not. So really by the end of the book, hopefully you're really taking note of the things that are impacting your sleep, and getting that sleep hygiene in order and seeing improvement. At the end, you take that sleep assessment again and you see where you still need to work.
Okay. I was going to ask you what's your thought on some of these sleep trackers. I've used both a Whoop strap and or a ring. Is that something that you like for yourself personally, or what are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, so I have on my Oura ring, and I've used like Fitbit and other things, but I don't sleep well with something on my wrist because I tend to put like my wrist near my face at night. So I have mixed thoughts about, so specifically the Oura ring. I mean, I've been wearing it for 2 years, so obviously I like it enough that I've been doing that. And I I like the way I could really look at, my sleep cycles and during the night and compare it to what things might be going on in the day. I still advocate for right in the beginning, tracking things on paper, because I think it helps you connect the dots better. But knowing your heart rate variability and how many times you woke in the night, you could start really using that to to connect the dots and try to figure out what's going on. The drawbacks that I've seen for myself, and I don't know if this is for everybody, is sometimes I'll just be relaxing on the couch and it tells me I'm sleeping.
Mhm.
Or sometimes I will wake in the night and be up, for longer than I'd like, but I'm in a relaxed enough state that it tells me I'm sleeping. And I know I'm not. So
Mhm.
it's going to tell me, yay, you had a great, night's sleep, go, conquer the day. Meanwhile, I'm not feeling that at all. So it's not perfect, but
Yeah.
I do think it could be very helpful.
Yeah. Gives you an idea. Yeah. And that's what I
Yeah.
like about it as well. So, okay. Well, very nice. So for people to get a hold of you, they can find you at Amanda Chocko, CHOCKO.com. And I'll have that in my notes.
Yes.
And then the book is called Relax, Sleep, Thrive. And I'm assuming they can find that on Amazon, anywhere.
Yep, that's on Amazon or on my website. It's also on barnesandnoble.com. Also, my website, I have a free download for creating your perfect sleep sanctuary that somebody could download if they'd like that. And I'm also on Instagram at amanda.chocko where I give sleep tips.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, appreciate all that as we wrap up here. My listeners know that I always ask my guests if they could give us one health tip that could make us healthier today. What would you say to that?
I would say be outside as much as possible.
Mm,
Getting that fresh air and that sunlight is going to help you with your stress levels, help sync your circadian rhythms, and just boost your mood for the
yeah.
day. That would be my number one.
Yeah. No, it's great advice. I couldn't agree more. And actually, I was telling this gentleman last night that a good night's rest actually starts in the morning, if you can.
Absolutely. That's what
Yeah.
I say too.
Yeah, yeah. If you can get some early morning sunlight, which is easier to do in the summer, it's harder in the winter. But if you can get that, then yeah, that's where it starts. So,
Yeah,
well, very
sure.
good. Good information. Encourage everybody, especially if you're struggling with sleep, to check out the book "Relax, Sleep, Thrive." So, Miss Amanda, certainly appreciate your time. And appreciate everyone listening as always. And have a good day. We will talk to you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to FitRx. I invite you to share this with friends and family. If you would like to contact me, you can visit our website at fitrxwellnessok.com, or you can email me at drgreg@fitrxwellnessok.com.